Welcome to Bible study
That doesn't suck.
for kids.
Yeah.
And I am Pastor Megan, and
I'm Ellak.
And how old are you?
8.
8.
And this is Graham, 7
weeks.
old.
Yeah, pretty good. And
He's snoozing right now, so he might not be very interested in what we're doing.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. Okay, so you ready for the story? Yeah? Okay. We're ready. Okay, so today's story is not as cool as zombies. It's not as cool as blind people getting naked.
And shooting and bunking into a
Bunking into the
a
wall.
rolling pin that bunks. No, a bowling pin that bunks into walls. Something like.
Yeah, no bowling pins in today's story. But I still think it's kind of interesting. So Jesus was teaching, and you know what he was teaching? Beware of religious people. People who work in the church and wear long robes and greet everyone with respect where they go. Do you know anybody who does that for their job?
You.
Yeah. So Jesus says, beware of them. Anyone who sits in the fancy seats in the churches or the synagogues and in places of honor at meals, people who get honored.
Like you.
Yeah, like me. And he says, but you know what they did in Jesus' time?
What?
They were the people who were really rich, while most people were very poor. About 98% of the people in Jesus' time were really poor. And they were so poor that they couldn't afford food. And if you got divorced, or if your husband died and you were a woman, you couldn't work. So you didn't have any food, and you didn't have any money, and you didn't have really a way that you could take care of yourself in that society. A lot's changed, right?
A lot's changed.
Women can vote and all that kind of stuff. But in Jesus' time, that didn't happen. And so he said, beware of these fancy religious folk who are honored and who walk around in their robes, because they take away widows' houses. For the sake of appearance, they just say really long prayers all the time. And they will get in trouble the most by God. And so he tried to explain what that meant. So he sat down opposite of the bank. At that time, in the church, in the Jewish version of a congregation, which is called a synagogue, it had a bank. And it kept all the money there, because they thought if God lived in that building or was keeping that building safe, why wouldn't you want to have your money there? That would be the safest place ever, right? Turns out, if you keep your money somewhere, that's the place people want to rob. Right? Even if they don't want to come to church, they might want to rob your money. So so it turned out to be a bad idea that they left all of their money there. So Jesus is sitting in the part of the synagogue where the money was. And many rich people put in lots and lots of money in the offering. And because they were, at that time, they were required to give a certain amount of money, like a tax, to the church. And so lots of rich people gave lots of money. And a poor widow, so a woman whose husband had died, came. She didn't have very much money. And she just put in 2 small coins that weren't worth very much. They were worth about a penny. And so he called to his disciples. Those were his buddies who were learning with him. And he said, you know what? This poor woman who doesn't have a husband put in more money than everybody who put money in the bank. Even though all she did is put in 2 pennies. You know why?
Why?
He said because all of the rich people put in lots of money, but they have lots and lots of money, right?
Yeah.
So they don't even maybe notice that much money. But this woman, because she's very poor, she gave every single amount of money she had. And even though it was just 2 pennies, she put all of her money in. And so what he was saying is that this tax that made people give their money to the church in order to participate, that it meant that this woman would lose her house and become homeless. And he thought it was a very dumb rule. And so he was saying the poor people who give money at the church give way more than the people who give lots and lots of money if they have lots and lots of money, because they give everything. They give their vulnerability, and then they have to live on the streets and not know where they have food. And his idea was, if you don't have any food or any money, then you're the most dependent on God. You have to, when you pray before your meal, we do it in thanks that we have food, right? Well, someone who gave all their money away, when they pray before they meal, they pray that they get food, right? And so they're a little more dependent on God than the folk who maybe have more stuff and don't notice that they need God in their life. So that's today's story. It's not as cool as zombies or blind people being healed, but it's a pretty good lesson. What do you think?
Things crashing into walls like bowling pins.
Yeah, like
similar to
bowling
bowling pins.
But what do you think about today's story? Why do you think Jesus says that all those fancy people who pray really long prayers at the church, like me, are the ones who are going to get in trouble? What do you think?
Because you don't give all your money to the church.
Well, Jesus isn't necessarily saying give all of your money to the church. He's actually saying the opposite. He says if you're really poor and the church makes you give them all your money, that's not very fair. And then it's not very good to be a community of faith that's causing people to become homeless. Or it's going to say, if you don't give money, you can't come. Right? Can you imagine if before you could go to church on Sunday, they'd say, you have to give us all of your allowance or you can't come to church. Would you go to church? No. What do you think? You got any other questions about the story?
My short version is people who pay tax to the bank don't have any money. They go out down the streets, wow for them. They're more dependent on God. And the church shouldn't do that. And rich people, they pay a lot of money, though it's not as much money as paying 3 cents.
And that's Alex 2 cents worth, right? And Graham says, good Bible study. Good Bible study. Goodbye, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Grammy with the head on.
Bye.